So this is an introductory video to Flash. So what we're going to do is introduce you to common Flash functions, and we're also going to create a basic animation so that you can see how the animation works in Flash. Some terms that we're going to be taking a look at. We are going to look at three different types of frames that we can add: frame, keyframe, and a blank keyframe. And then we're also going to look at scrubbing and how that can help us. Okay, so we'll get started here with a fairly basic animation. I've got Flash open, and here we've got their home window, and we're going to create a new ActionScript 3.0, which is what we're going to be creating for every project in this series. You can also get that from the File menu, and you can go to New, holding Command, but you still have to choose the type after that. So we'll just go to ActionScript 3.0. So it's customary that the first thing you should do probably when you open up a new project is save it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to go to the desktop here where I have the Flash Files folder that I've created. Because this is from Chapter A, I want to save it in the Chapter A folder. And we're going to make a frame-by-frame animation of a face. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to call this one frame face, and we'll hit save. Okay, a couple things we're going to set up with the document window before we get started. First thing we can do on the right hand side here, if you have the selection tool selected, you can click on the document or the stage here, and you get a whole bunch of different things that you can set. Frames per second we're going to play with in a little bit, and for the size, just so that we can change this a couple different ways. I want to change this to 400 by 400 so I get a nice square image. Two ways to change the width is either by dragging it left and right. Up and down also works, but if I want to set it to something specific, you can click on it, and I'm going to type in 400 so that I get a square stage, which is not customary because you're usually doing videos with this. And then you can set a stage color here. So you can click on the stage color, and we're going to pick a blue here that's not too dark. So I've got a blue stage. Sometimes when you make changes, it's a good idea to save. You could either go up here, go to File, Save, or notice that the hotkey here is Command S. So I'm just going to do that periodically. And what you're going to see, and I'll change it to a different blue, is when I make a change, this little star here shows up to show that I have something that is currently unsaved. Now I'm going to hit Command S on the keyboard, so it saves, and you can see that the star goes away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a circle here that is going to be the background of our face. So on the Tools panel, you're going to see the Shape tool is probably going to show up as a rectangle initially. What you can do is you can hold down the button, and then you can switch it to a different tool in this list. So we're going to go to the Oval tool. And here you can do a few things. We're going to get into some of these options in a later tutorial. And pick a color that you would like for your face. I'm going to have this orange interior, and then I'm going to have it with a black outside. So the fill color is the inside color, and the stroke color is the outside color. Inside, outside. Also, I want to maybe make my stroke a little bit larger. So maybe I'll pick a size of 3, and then I can draw my circle. So what you need to do is you can click and drag, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hold Shift. Holding Shift, make sure that you're drawing a perfect circle, and then I'll let go when I'm satisfied. Then you can use the selection tool to kind of move it around, but you'll notice this, if you've picked the normal circle shape, is that the interior is actually not attached to the exterior. So I'm going to undo that. Quick way to undo, Command Z, remember that one, it's important. So I'm going to double click and to select the whole thing, or you can use the selection tool, drag a box around it, and move it into the center. Okay, so we've got our face here. What I'm going to do on the timeline is I'm going to find layer 1, which is where my face is, and I'm going to double click on that name. I'm going to type in face so that I know what is there. So I'm going to make the objects that are on top on a new layer. So I'm going to go to new layer, which is at the bottom left here, and this one will be eyes. And then you can use the circle tool to put a couple eyes on here. So I'll do one here. And if I want to put the same one somewhere else, I can double click to select it, copy, paste. Now there's a couple different paste options. Paste in place does it right on top. Paste in center puts it in the middle. So I'll just drag this up. Looks good, and we're going to put a new layer, and this is going to be the mouth. Okay, and then for this you can use the brush tool, you can use the pencil tool or the line tool. I'm going to do something with the brush, so pick your color. Notice that the brush doesn't have a stroke because it is only a single color, and I'm just going to put a line, and it's going to fix it up a little bit here. So now we're ready to do a little bit of animation, so might it be a good idea to save this. So go to Command S. So right above the eyes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some pupils, and I'll make a new layer for that. Pupils. And I'm going to use this ellipse tool. I'll take away the stroke, so you can do that by clicking on here, clicking on this white box with a line through it so that it only has an inside and no outside. And I'm going to draw one here and draw one here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to animate this. We're on frame 1 right now, and it doesn't let me extend past that because right now everything is on the first frame. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to make a 20 frame animation, and we're going to use the face layer. If you go down to the face layer, you can select it, go to frame 20, and what we're going to do here is we're going to insert a frame. So go to Insert, Timeline, and go to Frame. So what happens here is that all of the drawing is on frame 1, and frame 20 is frames 2 through 20 currently have the face. I'm going to do the same thing with the eyes. So go to frame 20, Insert, Timeline, Frame. There we go. And then we're going to do something a little bit different with the pupils. I'll use the selection tool, go back to the beginning, and on frame 5 I'm going to change the position of the pupils. So we're going to go to Insert, Timeline, but instead of putting in a frame, we're going to put in a keyframe. So this is going to indicate that we are moving something on this frame. So I'm going to click on keyframe, and whenever you create a keyframe, both of the objects, or every object on that layer, is selected. So I'm going to have you move them to the left. And then on frame 10, we're going to go to Insert, Timeline, Keyframe, and have you move them up to the top. Go to 15, Insert, Timeline, Keyframe, and we'll move them to the bottom. And then between 15 and 20, we're going to make it a little fancier. Insert, Timeline, Keyframe. And what you can do here is change the locations to anything ridiculous. And keep doing this on every layer. Every frame. And the way that we can make this faster is if you want to control click, it opens up a little menu here, and then you can get a keyframe from there. But you're going to need to deselect before you move them individually. So the way you're going to do that is click off to the side where there's no object. So I'll show you that again. Insert keyframe, click off to the side, drag these to a new location. I'll make this a little more dramatic. Insert keyframe, deselect. Move this one over here. Move this one up here. And insert keyframe, deselect, and then I'm going to move them back to the middle here. Okay, so now what we can do is we can play this. You can drag the playhead here back to the beginning. This is a method called scrubbing. We're going through the timeline here. So if you go back to the beginning, you can use the controls down at the bottom to play through your animation. So it's a really quick little thing here. So I'm going to go back to the beginning, and we're going to do something slightly different with the mouth. Is on number 5, I want to change the mouth so that it actually looks different. So on frame 5 here, we're going to go to Insert, Timeline, Blank Keyframe, because I don't want to do anything with the original one. I want to draw a new mouth. So I'm going to go to Blank Keyframe. And then there's a little tool down here called Onion Skin, which is really useful. If I click on that, it lets me see what is on the previous frame of the animation. So I'm going to use the brush to draw a bit of a different shape, and I'll try and fill that in a little bit. On frame 10, we'll try that again. Insert blank keyframe. We'll do it this way here, and go to frame 15. Insert, I made a keyframe. So if you do that by accident, you can actually delete everything that's on it, and it will turn into a blank keyframe. So I'll maybe make sure he looks a little bit happy here. And if I don't want to change anything up until the end, I can just control click, go insert frame, and then we've got our first animation. So we can play, and this is what your first animation looks like. So what you should do is go to File and Save, and then you can go on to the next video in this series. Okay, so the objectives of this video were, 1, to introduce common functions in Flash, also to create a basic animation, which we did with the face, some hotkeys that we took a look at. One very important one was saving, Command S, and undo, Command Z. And then we also took a look at Save As, which is Shift Command S. So often when there's one option that is very similar to another thing that you would do, you hold down Shift or Option or something like that. So Save As is very similar, but they know that you normally do save, so that's Command S. Also, things that you should have taken away from this is you should now have a file saved in your Chapter A folder named Frame Face with your initials after it.